Ukraine just eradicated an entire Russian bomber unit with another precision strike inside Russia's territory. Putin is stuck trying to figure out what he can do to protect his remaining bombers as Ukraine makes a promise: more is coming. On June 27th, Euromaidan Press reported that a massive Ukrainian drone strike targeting the Marinovka airfield in Russia's Volgograd Oblast was not only on target but massively successful. The damage was severe. 4 of Russia's Su-34 aircraft now lie in ashes. These aircraft have been used constantly by Putin's forces to launch devastating glide bomb attacks against Ukraine's cities and military infrastructure. The goal has always been terror, and Putin has been succeeding. Since the beginning of his invasion, his forces have killed over 13,300 Ukrainian civilians and injured almost 33,000 more. Ukraine's strike saw it launch several long-range drones into Russian territory, which traveled at least 249 miles before touching down on Marinovka. And it's not just Su-34s that felt the Ukrainian drone's explosive might. The airfield is used by Russia to service and repair its aircraft, meaning Russia may have just lost access to a facility that helps it keep its air force in the skies. No ability to repair or service means fewer aircraft launching glide bombs at Ukraine from behind enemy lines. Ukraine's general staff confirmed the attack in a June 27th Facebook post, which stated, SBU and SSO-ZSU destroyed 2 Russian planes Su-34 at Aerodromy Marinivka in the Volgograd region. 2 more damaged. SSO-ZSU and the Security Service of Ukraine conducted a joint operation, which resulted in the destruction of 2 Russian fighters, bombers Su-34, and 2 more damaged. These multifunctional enemy fighters are actively used on the front line for bombing, including for cab skids. The General Staff also confirmed that the drones managed to cause a fire in the airfield's technical operations sector, which is presumably where Russia sends the aircraft it needs to service. Newsweek provided a follow-up report on June 28th, stating the initial assessments suggest that Ukraine's drones managed to destroy 2 of Russia's Su-34s outright, with the other 2 being damaged to an unspecified degree. Of course, that damage may be as good as destroying the aircraft. If the repair facilities at Marinovka are also gone, Putin may decide to give up on his damaged bombers rather than risk trying to transport them to another facility. Whatever the case may be, this is a massive win for Ukraine. But what has Russia been saying about it? Officially, Russia's defense ministry has yet to comment on Ukraine's Marinovka strike. That alone tells us that it was successful. Russia will often claim that it shot Ukraine's drones down, with any damage being caused to critical infrastructure being the result of drone debris rather than direct hits. Not this time. The Kremlin likely knows that it can't explain away 4 aircraft being destroyed along with a technical facility, so it's keeping as quiet as possible about the whole incident. That's not the case for Russian military bloggers on Telegram. According to Defense Blog, several pro-Kremlin Telegram accounts have confirmed the strike and bemoaned the complete lack of aerial defenses that allowed it to happen at all. One of those accounts is the Fighter Bomber Telegram channel, which Defense Blog says is closely aligned with Russia's aerospace forces. That channel released a frank statement that explains just how damaging Ukraine's assault is to Putin. There is no point commenting on Marinovka, more multi-billion ruble losses that could and should have been prevented. While other pro-Russia commentators were quick to lash out at the channel for such a frank comment, we can see here a hint of the frustration many inside Russia are feeling with Putin. More losses, attacks that shouldn't have happened. These are the words of military insiders who have grown sick and tired of what we mentioned in the introduction of this video. It's another day and yet another successful Ukrainian attack that has cost Russia money and key equipment. These sorts of strikes are happening all too often for Russia's liking, and Putin seems to be able to do nothing about it. If Russia had hoped to cast any sort of doubt on the scale of Ukraine's success on June 27th, those hopes were dashed a couple of days later when satellite images of the Marinovka base emerged. On June 29th, Defense Express reported on those images, which were shared by the open-source intelligence community Cyberbaroshno on Telegram. Confirmation of the results of the defeat of Su-34 aircraft on the night of 27th of June, the Telegram channel states. Satellite images from June 29th record the results of a successful attack on a Russian airfield. As reported by the SBU, 2 Su-34 aircraft were completely destroyed. 2 more were damaged. Traces of a probable detonation of suspended weapons are visible at one of the aircraft sites. This moment is marked in yellow on the image. Defense Express notes that satellite images taken of the site just a couple of days before Ukraine's strike show that the Russian aircraft were present. By June 29th, the satellite images show clear blast marks on the sites where the Su-34s had been stationed, suggesting Ukraine pulled off a series of direct hits that caused the Su-34's external munitions to detonate. What we have here is irrefutable evidence of Ukraine's success. Those satellite images, combined with Russia's uncharacteristic silence about the attack, tell us that Ukraine just hit Russia hard. Putin will be livid. He knows that no matter where he stations his equipment inside Russia, Ukraine has shown time and time again that it can use drones to take it out and leave him dealing with even more multi-billion-dollar losses, at a time when his country's economy is straining under the weight of the invasion he started. Here's what all of this means for the future of the Ukraine war. First and foremost, Ukraine just managed to take out 4 of the most valuable weapons in Putin's arsenal. Army Recognition says that the aircraft, which carries the NATO reporting name of Fullback, is a twin-engine, twin-seat strike fighter that is an upgrade over the Su-27 and was intended to be a replacement for the Su-24. It's a multi-role aircraft that's supposed to allow Russia to achieve dominance in contested airspace. Of course, that's not how Putin has been using it. His efforts to dominate Ukraine's airspace failed early in his invasion, which led to Russia's leader resorting to keeping these vulnerable aircraft behind friendly lines. Each of the Su-34's engines is rated at 30,000 pounds of thrust, Army Recognition says, and they feature afterburners that allow them to reach a top speed of Mach 1.8. They can travel for up to 2,485 miles and have a service ceiling of about 9.3 miles, which would put them out of the range of many of Ukraine's air defense systems if Putin were brave enough to deploy them inside Ukraine. The Su-34 is also among the most advanced aircraft in Russia's arsenal. It's fitted with a forward-looking phased array radar and some of the most advanced electronic warfare countermeasures features Russia can conjure up. The aircraft also has an inertial navigation system that's supported by Russia's GLONASS satellite navigation system, though Army Recognition suggests that it's also likely compatible with GPS. That combination allows for automated flight pathing, with the aircraft being capable of being deployed with a pre-programmed flight route in addition to allowing direct pilot control. The Su-34 also hits hard, and that's why Ukraine wants to take as many of them out as it can. As a multifunction strike bomber, the Su-34 can be packed with all sorts of weapons. All of the aircraft come with a 30mm GSH-31 cannon with between 150 and 180 rounds. The Su-34 also has 12 external hardpoints that allow it to carry several types of missiles, including the KH-31AP, KH-29LTE, KH-59ME, and S-25LD, giving it strike capabilities against targets in the air and on the ground. Far more worrying for Ukraine was the Su-34's ability to carry up to 6 CAB 500KR or 3 CAB 1500KR guided aerial bombs. These are the makeshift glide bombs Russia has been creating using its Soviet-era heavy bomb stockpiles that have caused so much damage to Ukraine's cities. Now there are 4 Su-34s that won't be able to launch those glide bombs anymore. That's bad news for Putin on 2 fronts. When it comes to stockpiles, Russia isn't exactly running out of Su-34s. The country's main contract for the jets saw it receive 131 of them in total, though several would have likely been lost to crashes and write-offs even before the Ukraine war began. While that major contract was fulfilled by 2020, Russia has only continued low-rate production of the upgraded Su-34M variant since then, with the latest batch delivered in April 2025. So while technically still in production, the pace is a trickle, nowhere near enough to quickly replenish losses like the 4 jets destroyed at Marinovka. But he's pulling from the stockpile that's only been replenished at a trickle. Production of the upgraded Su-34M is still ongoing, with deliveries continuing into 2025, but at a pace far too slow to keep up with mounting losses. And Ukraine now knows it can hit more Su-34s in the future if it feels the need. The second problem for Putin is the cost of this attack, disregarding the loss of Marinovka's technical facilities, the cost of which is difficult to estimate as we have to account for both the destroyed facilities and the ongoing cost to Russia of not being able to repair and service aircraft. The Su-34 is not an inexpensive machine. It's among the most expensive aircraft Russia has, with each one costing $36 million to build, according to the Kyiv Post. That means Ukraine just cost Russia at least $144 million of damage using long-range drones that likely cost a fraction of that amount. According to Business Insider, Russia is on pace to run out of its financial reserves by the fall of 2025. It's already down to $31 billion compared to $117 billion in 2021, meaning Putin literally can't afford to take the sort of financial hits that Ukraine inflicted upon him on June 27th. 4 destroyed or damaged Su-34s doesn't just mean a reduction in attacks on Ukraine's territory. They also represent yet another of the many ways that Ukraine puts the squeeze on Russia's economy with the military targets it chooses to destroy. Still, we can't discount the impact Ukraine's strike will have on Russia's aerial assaults. Putin was clearly going to rely more heavily than ever before on glide bombs in 2025. Newsweek points out that the Su-34s are the main aircraft Russia uses to launch the destructive missile and glide bomb strikes that have caused so much damage to Ukraine's cities over the last few years. We only need to look at the last few days to see that. Ukraine's attack came just 2 days after a widespread Russian attack on Ukraine's territory that left 10 people dead and injured 50 others. Though Ukraine managed to shoot down 21 of the 23 Shahid drones Russia used in the attack, it couldn't stop everything. One Russian drone struck the city of Odessa, killing a married couple and injuring at least 14. In Samar, which is in the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, missiles and bombs killed 5 and injured at least 25. What we see here is a key part of Russia's strategy: hit Ukraine hard and constantly from the air. It's clear that Putin intended to intensify these types of aerial assaults as his invasion moved deeper into 2025. In February, Euromaidan Press reported that Russia planned to produce 75,000 glide bombs during 2025, which amounts to a production schedule of about 205 per day. That's around double the 100 per day Russia was building in September 2024, telling us that glide bombs were going to become even more central to Putin's strategy as his troops faltered on the ground. That isn't going to change after Ukraine's June 27th attack. Russia isn't going to slow down on its glide bomb production after losing 4 of the aircraft it uses to launch those bombs. But remember where Marinovka Air Base is. We mentioned earlier that Marinovka is about 249 miles from the Ukrainian border, meaning it's perfectly positioned for Russia to use it as a launching ground for its bomb and missile attacks. Even if Marinovka wasn't being used for that purpose, its status as a repair and servicing airfield means it was likely keeping aircraft Putin was using at other nearby air bases in the skies. Losing 4 Su-34s means that Russia loses 4 of its favored aircraft for glide bomb assaults. Ultimately, that means Russia's future glide bomb attacks may be less effective, especially if Putin has resorted to using older aerial platforms that are nearing the ends of their lifespans. It's all chip damage against a Russian offensive setup that's been causing massive problems for Ukraine. And if Ukraine can follow up its Su-34 strike with more in the future, Putin may find himself with tens of thousands of glide bombs that he isn't able to launch. That's another point. Putin will be seething because he's just had to watch even more of his bombers bite the dust at a time when Russia is still trying to recover from Ukraine's devastating Operation Spiderweb. That brilliant attack, which saw Ukraine sneak 117 drones onto Russian soil, that it launched at 4 or 5 different air bases deep in Russian territory, led to Putin losing about a third of his bomber fleet. Bear in mind that the Russian Air Force was believed to possess 130 strategic bombers before that operation took place. Operation Spiderweb left Russia with fewer than 100, with each subsequent strike against targets like Su-34s whittling away at that number even further. This is a problem Russia faces on a wider scale with its entire bomber fleet. In Operation Spiderweb, Russia lost Tu-95MS and Tu-22M3 bombers that, like the Su-34, have been used in the past several years to launch missiles and glide bombs at Ukraine. In the wake of that operation, the Moscow Times reported on comments made by Royal United Services Institute aviation expert Justin Bronk, who believes that Russia won't be able to replace any of those aircraft either. The losses would put major pressure on a key Russian force that was already operating at maximum capacity, Bronk said at the time. He also noted that Russia is trying to build a new bomber named the Pak-Dar, but that isn't going to see the light of day anytime soon. Initial production isn't slated to start until 2027, and the program may experience massive delays due to the Ukraine war. Russia will struggle to deliver the Pak-Dar program at all in the coming 5 years, let alone accelerate it, due to budgetary shortfalls and materials and technology constraints on industry due to sanctions. All of this amounts to something that Putin doesn't want to admit. Russia has a bomber problem, and Ukraine just made that problem a lot worse by taking out 4 Su-34s. Ukraine also highlighted just how inadequate Russia's air defenses have become on June 27th. Remember earlier we mentioned the fighter bomb Telegram channel and its almost exasperated claim that Ukraine shouldn't have been able to hit Marinovka. The channel was right. Attacks like this aren't meant to be possible. At least, they're not if you listen to Putin and his Kremlin cronies. But what June 27th exposed, yet again, is that Russia's aerial defense systems are now stretched so thin by the Ukraine war that the country simply doesn't have enough to defend all of its key equipment. How could it? According to Ukraine's Ministry of Finance, Russia has lost 1,189 anti-aircraft war units as of June 29th. The air defenses Russia still has are proving to be ineffective against Ukraine's long-range drones. We see that with Ukraine's destruction of 4 Su-34s. And just over a week before, Ukraine reportedly managed to hit Aktubinsk air base with drones, damaging 2 of Russia's prized and ultra-modern Su-57s in the process. These attacks wouldn't be happening if Russia had enough air defense systems and, crucially, if those systems were as capable as Putin claims them to be. Russia has a clear air defense weakness. On June 27th, Ukraine exploited that weakness, and it's going to keep doing it. Right now, Ukraine is pushing to create as many drones as possible because they've proven time and again to be the country's most effective weapon against Russia. In fact, just 3 days before the Marinovka strike, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke at the NATO Defense Industry Forum in The Hague and claimed that Ukraine now has the manufacturing capacity to build 8 million drones annually. The only problem, Zelensky says, is that Ukraine doesn't have the funding to hit that number. Our defense production potential has surpassed $35 billion, Zelensky said. This includes nearly 1,000 types of products, but around 40% of that potential lacks proper funding. For example, we can produce over 8 million drones of different types each year, but the financing allows for far fewer. The message was clear: if Ukraine gets more funding, it can hit Russia even harder. Even as it waits, Ukraine is doing as much as it can to press its drone advantage. The country is ramping up the production of its interceptor drones, which it uses to take out Russia's Shahids before they can touch down on Ukrainian targets. Ukraine and the UK also announced a deal to jointly manufacture drones on June 23rd. Zelensky says he needs funding, and it looks like he might be getting some. This tide continues, Putin will be worried. A Ukraine that can build even more drones is an enemy that can take out even more of his most valuable assets now that Russia's air defenses are sufficiently weakened. Ukraine is ramping up its use of drones. In the coming months, expect to see even more of these types of deep strikes into Russian territory that Ukraine pulled off on June 27th. More Su-34s may soon fall victim to Ukraine's drones. So may any of the other aerial platforms Russia uses to launch its devastating glide bombs. And with each loss, more pressure is placed on Putin's position as Russia's strongman leader, as his people see their country get hit militarily and economically. The reality that Putin must now face is that the Russian Air Force is collapsing. Check out our video to find out just how bad the problem is, and remember to subscribe to the Military Show for more videos covering the latest developments in the Ukraine war.